Are you ready to get your health back but feel overwhelmed by the endless healthcare options? We believe God has called each of us to a specific assignment, and we want to make sure your body, mind, and heart are up for the task. It's time to simplify the process of healing. At Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer simple, effective, easy ways to prioritize your health and gain understanding. No prescription pad needed. I'm Kari, a pharmacist turned integrative health practitioner. I'm so excited to have these conversations around topics with my friend, Jenn.
Hi there, I'm Jenn, and together with our team at Cornerstone Integrative Healing, we offer an alternative to traditional healthcare, combining our expertise and experience in the medical field with our knowledge and faith to break the cycles of guessing what's wrong. We know the road to healing, feeling good again, can be overwhelming. You can expect honest conversations around the ups and downs of healing. The truth is, there are so many layers to healing. Because we've taken the time to learn where true healing comes from, we've learned how to help other women to discover a different way of caring for themselves. Join us every week for new episodes as we discuss topics that are personal and pertinent to your healing journey.
Hello and welcome back into the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast. It's Kari and Jenn here, and we have another great episode for you today. We're diving into a really common thing that we hear a lot, like when maybe you went to the regular doctor and you've got lab work and they say everything looks fine, but you don't feel fine. You feel awful. So we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit and why that might be, why everything might look fine on your blood work, but why is that? You still don't feel good. So do you hear this a lot, Jenn?
Oh, yes. Very often.
Yeah, it's definitely a common thing. And I think, we love using blood work here. Number one, because a lot of times you've already gotten it from your doctor, so we can use the same blood work if it's within a certain time range. But also, a lot of people are very familiar with blood work, and it can tell us a ton if it's looked at through the right lens. So we're going to talk a little bit about, what that right lens might be. Jenn, do you want to start with like normal ranges that usually, like if you go to the regular doctor, why that might not equal optimal?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something else that I think it's important that, in mainstream, the tools that they use are subjective, objective. They're listening to you, which is subjective, but if it does not show up on their tests, they sort of dismiss it. And I just want to say to you, really advocate for yourself, because this is not something that should be dismissed if it does not show up on a lab. I just see it so often where women were like, well, I never pursued it because they said everything looked fine. Or meanwhile, their hair's falling out, they can't lose weight, they have no energy, but their labs, quote unquote, are normal. So, it's very often that they want to treat the labs and not the person.
Yeah.
So, look, there are great medical providers out there that will work in that margin, right? Where they're like, well, the labs look normal, but you feel like crap. So let's, let's dig deeper. So I just wanted to say, it's really important that you advocate for yourself and keep looking for people that will do that for you because you're not crazy. It's not quote unquote normal. It may be common. That's said a lot. It's common, but it's not normal. So, you're called to live an abundant life. So, keep looking.
Yeah.
Okay. So why lab? Excuse me. Why normal lab ranges aren't often optimal? First of all, so you are looking at a statistical range that mainstream is looking at that is based on averages across sick and healthy populations, right? So they're looking at an average. I would say the majority of the people out there probably aren't healthy in the sense metabolically healthy, or, there's something underlying going on. So I think that range is very much skewed. So most labs will only flag something if it's outside of that clinical reference range, which you can drive a truck through the mainstream clinical reference range. Like, it's very large. That is not optimal. For instance, just what the white blood cell range is 2.9 to 11. That's for all ages. So, functional medicine range is somewhere between 5.5 and 7.5. That's optimal, right? So if you go to, have some blood drawn and say your white blood cells are 3.0, they'll be like, oh yeah, it looks fine. It looks great. Meanwhile, a functional practitioner will look at that and be like, there's probably some underlying infection on here that's fatiguing the bone marrow, causing a decrease in white blood cells. And we need to support that. So, the other thing is, for things to show up in the blood, you have been sick for a long time. The body does everything to keep the blood homeostatic. That means to keep it normal. So if stuff is showing up on the in the blood, it's been around for a while.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important to note that, we aren't only going on, or really, I guess the goal isn't to have perfect labs. And like Jenn said, like, we're looking at the whole person. We're not just looking at the labs, but the labs can tell us, okay, well, what's going on? And we match that up with signs and symptoms and other different tests if we have those. So we're really looking more so for patterns. And that's a lot of times what conventional medicine misses. Not only are the ranges bigger, they're not necessarily looking at blood work from maybe like a 30-foot view to see like what patterns are going on here.
Yeah,
And
we do not diagnose, by the way. We're that's a really good point. By looking at the patterns, we're not diagnosing anything, but simply just reading into what the body that might be telling us.
yeah, for sure. And since we were on the topic of white blood cells and that range, we often look at the CBC portion just to see like what are the patterns and what does that tell us about the immune function and what might be, a burden on the immune system. And so pathogens and different bugs and things can definitely hide in what's called biofilms. These are protected sacs that those things make within our body to kind of evade the immune system and avoid getting killed off. And so really looking at patterns like a low white blood cell and then maybe the differential portion of your CBC is somehow that's sort of showing us, right, what's going on underneath the surface. That's kind of a way that you can look at patterns to determine, okay, we think this is what's going on, the immune system struggling, which is super common, right? We see this a lot. And immune burdens are huge when you think about looking at root cause because they truly drain the body of energy and it can't mount a response to, a chronic underlying infection. So that's something that we definitely look at along with other patterns of, other organ functions. We can even look at certain minerals along with HTMA. So these are just patterns and things that we look for.
Do you want to talk about just biofilms and how we can, what a CBC might look or a differential might look like before and after?
Yeah, sure. So biofilms are tricky because, I won't say there's always one pattern, but a lot of times when the white blood cell count is low, and then the differential portion, which is like the neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, those values will be high or low in a certain pattern, like low. High neutrophils, low lymphocytes can definitely tell us that there's some type of underlying viral infection going on. And so that's just something really key as to know where to start to give your body support to help your immune function.
Yeah, and commonly we'll see that the white blood cells will be low and the differential will be normal, right? Nothing like the lymphocytes, the neutrophils, basophils, those will all be normal. And then we'll start dressing biofilms and retest, and all of a sudden the differential there's a huge pattern in the differential because we've broken open those biofilms and the body can now see that these bugs are present and starts to address them. So that is something, again, mainstream doesn't really look at biofilms or address that, which are huge.
Yeah.
So if your blood labs, especially your CBC, looks in differential looks normal, there's definitely more digging to be done.
Yeah. And that is a good point. A lot of times, obviously, if we're just working with a client, we'll get initial blood work, and then we might do some root cause work, and we'll retest blood work, and sometimes it might look worse than it did
Yeah,
in the
right.
because
Which is
you're
actually
doing things right.
right, right, which is actually a good thing. We're always happy when things change.
Yeah.
Um, it's while it might not be comfortable for you sometimes, although we try to make it comfortable, or it seems like things are getting worse, it's actually a great thing because we know that the body is initiating healing. It's when there's zero change that we're worried, good or bad. Like you don't feel worse, you don't feel better. That's when we worry.
Yeah, for sure. Um, another I guess difference when looking at blood work from this view is we're really looking at preventing versus just waiting for something to get off. That's typically what is happening in the conventional space. Just because those ranges are so wide, something would have to be really off to be flagged. And like Jenn said, I mean, it takes a while for these things to get off. So we're trying to prevent it before it gets that out of range.
Hopefully, right? If you come, yeah, hopefully. I mean, that's ideally why you do this type of work. That you don't just do it once and you feel better. You keep doing it. Not that you need to do it every month, but that you stay on top of things. Because I always explain your health is like spinning plates. You know, the guy that spins the plates. You spin the first plate, you spin the second plate, you spin the third plate. All of a sudden, you need to go back and start spinning the first plate again. That's just how it is. And right, you're going to have ups and downs in life. We have emotional events which open us up. We have accidents. There's, you name it. So you want to constantly be just addressing or looking and being uh, very vigilant about prevention and being on top of things, because I'm just thinking parasites. I worked with this herbalist. He's like, it's a constant cycle because you pick them up so easily. If you eat out, if you're out in public and you can touch a door handle, they're just there's endless ways that things can change. So you just want to, if you're healthy and even if you feel good, I would say every 3 months at least, be working with someone just to address, prevention. And we can work long term on things, right? What's the number one cause of, mortality here in the US? It's related to heart disease. So you'll either probably die from a vascular event, whether that's, like a stroke or heart attack, whether it's hemorrhagic or clotted, working on long-term vascular support, because we know that over time, with aging, the vascular changes, supporting brain health, obviously, so we can prevent things like Alzheimer's and things like that. Those are truly, especially women going through menopause, men going through andropause. Those are just things that you need to be supported through.
Yeah, metabolic also. Metabolic health is super big. Because
That's number one. Yeah, that's number one. Of course, as we age, our body, that stress response just has been turned on for so long. So we want to manage, the metabolic aspects, whether that's blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure. And all those relate to obviously trauma, minerals. So those need to be managed long term if you want to stay ahead of metabolic health.
yeah, and that does bring up a good point. That's really why we love working with people long term. And that can look like, okay, you have, some pressing issue. We do lab work, work through some root cause. Okay, you're feeling good. You can come back to us and get blood drawn or get a hair test or other tests, however often you need. So we definitely love walking with people long term because things are going to change. You go through different seasons. So
For sure. And the body's always sending messages before something shows up, quote unquote, clinically, in a lab or et cetera. So, our role is to kind of stay on top of that, knowing, you know how you feel. And a lot of people know, like, something's not right. I feel off. Or again, just doing the things that we know, like metabolic changes or vascular changes where people need support long term. So, I would say, in our practice, long term, looking at those labs and the hair analysis that we looked at, looking at the different stages people are in, it's really imperative that you address things sooner than later, because obviously it's much easier to prevent things than to address them once they show up. And so while we can definitely address things, it's much better just to stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we talked mostly about blood work here, but HTMA is another test that we use that is really great paired with blood work. And then, putting that together with the signs and symptoms, it can give us a lot of extra information, because minerals are huge. People are so mineral deficient, and they really run all processes in your body. So it's just super important that we look at that as well. And blood work can give us some clues, but it's really best to have both to look at. It's just two different views that you can then put together and get a really good idea of where you are.
Yeah, and if I would say, sorry, I would say if you're healthy, at least once a year for both of those, a full blood panel that includes a full CBC with diff, comprehensive metabolic, a thyroid panel, an iron panel, in depth, just to look at all the inflammatory markers, C-reactive protein and homocysteine. We also look at copper and ceruloplasmin, and then putting that together with the hair analysis at least once a year, even if you're healthy.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully this was helpful. We really just wanted to talk through some of this because it's such a common thing. And like Jenn said at the very beginning, like, don't just take, if you don't feel good, don't just take everything looks fine for an answer. You might need to change providers if they're not willing to dig deeper. You might want to go more of the holistic route. Just don't take that for an answer, because your body was made to heal. You just have to really identify like what is causing it, what is hindering it from doing that. And yeah.
So if you're interested, we would love to, if you're one of those people where you've been told all the labs are normal, but you still feel awful, please reach out to us. We'd love to have a call with you to see if it's a good fit for you. We always love talking to people, even if it's not a good fit. We love to pray for you. You can also take the quiz online just to see if you might be able to find the help that you need. And so reach out, please reach out.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for joining. We'll see you on the next episode.
If this episode has served you in any way, drop a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We'd love it if you'd share any aha moments or takeaways on Instagram and tag us at Cornerstone Integrative Healing.
And if you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do so. We want to continue to walk this journey with you. Until next time, friends, know that we are praying for you.